Do you hear that? That's the Pac-12, and the clock is still ticking for them to get a media deal done. Is time about to run out? I think it might be. And I have two different articles that prove it. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and let's talk about it. What is up, college sports fans, Big 12 fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Couz. Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. Pull up that chair and let me serve you up another shot of top-shelf college football content. On tap at Couz's Corner today, we are once again talking Pac-12 media negotiations. And I know there's a few of you out there tired of hearing about this stuff. I get it, but there are still a lot of you that want to talk about it. When new news comes up, when I'm reading the tea leaves and I see things lining up a certain way, I want to bring that to you guys. And that's what I'm doing here today in this video, is I think the Pac-12, regardless of what these school presidents might be saying in public, I think behind the scenes, the time is about to run out on this conference before teams start leaving. And I'm going to tell you why I think that. First of all, let's look at an article that was written just a couple of days ago. I'm recording this on Friday, March 31st. Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports put out an article about this situation. He once again got even more quotes from Arizona President Robert Robbins. We all know Robert Robbins spoke out a couple weeks ago regarding the situation. He basically said, yes, we're still united with other schools in the Pac-12. However, he did leave the door open for Arizona to go to a different conference. He did not shut that door. He's hopeful they get a deal done. He thinks they'll get a deal done. But he also stuck a subtle comment in there that he wouldn't mind driving to Lubbock, Texas for a game. Now, the title of this article by Dennis Dodd, it says, nothing to suggest new Pac-12 media rights deal is near with 15 months left on current contract. Subtitled, the Pac-12 got caught off guard and now it's stuck in limbo. Now, for this article, I'm going to try to focus on the comments made by Robert Robbins himself, because I know Dennis Dodd does tend to write this from kind of a pro-Big 12 perspective. But at the same time, the quotes in this article are very telling to me and tells you why Dennis Dodd and others out there are talking about Pac-12 teams possibly leaving. There's smoke to this, folks. I'm telling you. Now, let's go. Let's keep going. Talks about Robbins' comments from a couple of weeks ago, how he put a soft deadline of April 15th. And where does he stand today? And this is a quote, the first quote from Robbins. It says this: I have heard nothing to suggest a deal is imminent. There's all these things about, well, we want to wait until after the Final Four. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with assessing who is the right fit, who assesses us. I hope Commissioner Kliavkoff gets something done sooner rather than later so that the whole thing stops, so we don't have focus on it. I am perfectly willing to sit here and wait. He wants it done sooner rather than later, so all of us like me and the media and everybody else will stop talking about it. But he says he's willing to wait. He doesn't see the hurry. I disagree with that. In a minute, I'll tell you why. Article goes on to talk about how the Big 12 jumped in front of the line of the Pac-12 in their media rights negotiations. Talks about how his sources are still telling him that Fox is out of the bidding for now, and also that ESPN is still believed to be interested, along with at least one streaming partner. But we've also heard some reports that, and/or rumors, whatever you want to call them, that ESPN is not willing to spend a lot of money. And the news going out around about Disney, who owns ESPN, wanting to cut jobs, that would make perfect sense. Also, you add in the fact that ESPN already has the SEC, they already have the ACC, they already have the Big 12 now, plus some Group of Five conferences. They don't have a whole lot of room left for inventory, folks. And there are other sports leagues out there that want these time slots as well, one of them being the NBA, which I'll touch on later in the video. Now, talks about USA Network and Peacock being potential partners out there that NBC could get in. But let's face it, USA Network is cable only, it's not network. And then Peacock is a streaming service. And both of them are going to be vying not only potentially for NBA, but also for WWE. Keep that in mind. That's a big deal. That their deal's coming to an end as well. Now, here's another quote from Robbins. It says, this whole streaming thing, that's overplayed. I think this deal is going to have a heavy traditional analog or cable piece. I think. He says, I think. He doesn't say I know, because there's not a deal in front of him yet, folks. All this time, Kliavkoff hasn't even been able to get a deal in front of his presidents. Let's keep going with the quote from Robbins. There may be some streaming in it, but I don't think anybody would want to go majority streaming. You remember from one of his previous comments from other articles a couple of weeks ago, he says he would not be happy with more than 50% streaming, would not agree to it. Folks, and that's the way this is leaning, I'm telling you. Now, yes, there's 15 months remaining, but in this article, Dennis Dodd points out most futures are generally secured roughly 18 months out. The Big 12 got theirs done 2.5 years out. SEC got theirs done 4 years out. Now, the Big 10 was a little bit of an anomaly because they had to wait for USC and UCLA for that to become a done deal before they could finalize their deal. But let's move on to the next quote from Robbins. It says, I don't feel the angst of everyone else in the world. Maybe it's because I'm too dumb to realize. We've got a deal for another 15 months. We're the only ones out there, which is not true, or not accurate, I should say. It's not like we're competing with anybody else. And there again, not accurate because the NBA's out there, the WWE's out there. And here's, to me, this is what my friend Greg Flugar would call the money shot of this article right here, in my opinion. Listen to this, folks. This is directly from the mouth of Arizona President Robert Robbins. This is not Dennis Dodd's words, folks. This is Robert Robbins speaking. It says this: nobody out there is wanting to do a deal. We'll wait and see what happens. Are you kidding me? Listen to that again. Nobody out there is wanting to do a deal. Does that mean, now, does he mean nobody literally? Like literally nobody, not even ESPN wants to do a deal with the Pac-12? If that's the case, they're screwed. I'm telling you. Now, it could have just been a general term for there's not many. Could have been a metaphor. But if it's literally nobody, that's terrible. And if it's a metaphor for not many, that's still not a good place to be because they have zero leverage in that case. This doesn't look good for the Pac-12, folks. I don't care what the Pac-12 fans want us, how they want to spin it on Twitter. I don't care what Pac-12 media people like John Canzano how they want to spin it. It's not a good look. Now, am I sitting here telling you the Pac-12 is going to die tomorrow? No, I'm not. But I'm telling you the clock is still ticking. Now, I mentioned the NBA earlier, how they're a factor in this. A lot of the media outlets that are in play for the Pac-12 are also in play for the NBA, who, oh, by the way, their media rights also expire in 24-25. Let's look at an article about this issue. An article written by Jason Aycock with SeekingAlpha.com. ESPN, Turner, and media names get ready to pay dearly in new NBA deal. The National Basketball Association is rolling toward a new multi-year deal for rights to its games. And with growing interest from a lot of new streaming entrants into the sports world, the league is looking for a substantial new payday. That probably means a doubling or tripling of its current package, which is heading toward an end date in 24-25. B of A analyst Jessica Reif-Ehrlich suggests. Guess who else's deal ends in 24? The Pac-12. So to say there's no competition to me is just not true. Ehrlich goes on to say, the league is in a sweet spot. It's a highly attractive sports package with global appeal and a lengthy, game-filled 6-month-plus season, she says. What's that called? It's called inventory. It's called tonnage. It's what all these networks crave. It's the reason the Big 12 was able to jump line in front of the Pac-12. It gave ESPN inventory they needed after losing the Big 10. Let's keep moving. Meanwhile, the increasing live sports ambitions of Apple, does that sound familiar? We all know they've been part of the whole Pac-12 saga. And Amazon Prime Video, again, part of the Pac-12 saga as potential partners, streaming partners, are likely to put some pressure on the NBA's deal incumbents, ESPN and Turner. If Turner sounds familiar, it's because I did a video just a few days ago talking about there's a rumor out there that TNT could be in play, who's owned by Turner, who's owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, who, oh, by the way, is having some financial issues of their own. So they're not going to pay out to Yin Yang for some of these sports rights. They want them, but they're not going to overpay for them. Let's keep going. I'm not going to bore you with all the financial stuff. Here's the part I want to focus on, and that's this sentence right here at the end. It says, ESPN and Turner, the end of this next paragraph, it says, ESPN and Turner value the sport. Talking about the NBA, obviously. It says, but they're unlikely to pay that kind of increase, the double or triple that they're asking for, which points to a new entrant making up a big three of rights holders, Ralph Ehrlich said. And neither of them are willing to overpay. And if they're not willing to overpay for the NBA, do you think they're willing to overpay for the Pac-12? I seriously doubt it, folks. I'm telling you, I just don't think the Pac-12 has a lot of options right now. I seriously don't think the Pac-12 has a lot of options right now. With these streaming companies wanting in on the NBA, would they pony up a large amount of money for the Pac-12 before knowing what's going to happen with the NBA deal? Whether they get it or not, how much they have to pay for it. That would mean one of two things. First of all, either the streaming companies are only offering pennies on the dollar for Pac-12 rights, which is what I think is probably happening, or they are not willing to commit until they see what they get with the NBA. That means they're wanting to wait several more months. These Pac-12 teams can't wait that long. And I'll get to why here in just a second, but you add all that to the fact that TNT, which is my Warner Brothers, and ESPN are also wanting in on the NBA. They may also be wanting to wait to see what happens with the NBA deal before they commit to spending money on the Pac-12. That means the Pac-12 deal could be strung out, like I said, for months. With teams like Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah be willing to wait until the 11th hour to sign a media deal. I don't think so. Keep in mind, it can be used against them in recruiting, folks. The coaches and the ADs are going to raise immortal Cain if that happens. Coaches of teams from other conferences are going to say things like, hey, if you go to the Pac-12 school, all their games are going to be on a streaming service. Come to the Big 12, where we are stable. We already have a deal locked in. We're good through 2031. And oh, by the way, it's with the two largest live sports carriers in the world with Fox and ESPN. So you're going to be on national television almost every single week. And oh, by the way, we're having our pro day on the NFL Network. And if you're a basketball player, they can say something, add to it. We signed a deal with Rucker Park. You might get to play exhibition games in Rucker Park in the offseason. And we're the best basketball conference in the country. But you go play for the Pac-12, where your games will never be seen by hardly anybody because it's going to be stuck on Amazon Prime or Apple. Or at the very best case scenario, Pac-12 after dark, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, when everybody on the East Coast is asleep, or at least all the casual fans are anyway. I'm just telling you, folks, I just think the longer this thing goes, it looks worse and worse and worse for the Pac-12. It's not good. And is that good for the sport? Probably not. Probably not good at all. Would it be good for the Big 12? Probably, because they could grab some more teams, potentially. Would it be good for the Big 10? Maybe, because they might be able to grab a couple more teams for bottom dollar prices. They might be able to get Oregon and Washington for $40 million or less. Probably less. So, at the end of the day, there's so much smoke to this story, folks. I'm telling you, when you've got Dennis Dodd, you've got Brett McMurphy, you have 24/7 Sports, you have Pete Thamel, you have people from The Athletic like Max Olson, all of them telling us basically the same thing, that these Pac-12 schools are kicking the tires on the Big 12. I'm not saying it's imminent that they go to the Big 12. I'm not saying they've even negotiated. All I'm saying is they're kicking the tires, and that at some point the patience is going to run out, and they're going to say, you know what? I love the academics of the Pac-12. I love the culture of the Pac-12. I don't really want to go to the Big 12, but if we don't, our football and basketball program, and oh, by the way, along with it, our enrollment is going to take a freaking nosedive, man. You don't think that matters? You don't think sports matters? Sports impacts academics. It's the front porch to your university. Brett Yormark himself said he went to the University of Indiana because of Bobby Knight and their basketball program in the 80s and how good they were. So you can't tell me that the academics and athletics aren't tied together. You can't tell me it doesn't matter, because it does. So the Pac-12 schools, the longer this goes, the wider that door opens for them to potentially go to the Big 12 Conference. I want to hear your thoughts about this topic in the comment section. What do you think about the time the Pac-12 has left? What do you think about them competing with the NBA and even people like the WWE for media rights deals? I think it's critical. WWE CEO Nick Khan was even did an interview about it recently, which I'm hoping to touch on in a separate video. But things are not looking good for the Pac-12. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. There are several ways. If you go to my description box, there's links to Fanatics, my merch store, Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. If you buy from Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters, put Couz's, Couz' in the comments. Let them know you heard about them on Couz's Corner. All of that helps out my channel. You can support, you can hit the heart thanks option. You can join my channel, take advantage of the perks. I had my very first members only live stream this past week where it was just members only invited, where you guys, it gets a lot more personal in there. Gets, we kind of get to know each other a little bit. And of course, we talk some college football as well. And I get, different video ideas and things like that from you guys. Last but not least, if you want to support me absolutely free, like, share, comment, subscribe. It all helps the YouTube algorithm. All helps my channel grow. With all of that being said, I really appreciate your support for this video. And until the next one, Q Country Roads. West Virginia, proud to mama, taking